Hi guys. Okay, so let's talk about the bones a little bit. So I looked up some information, got some little crime scene investigation 101. Let's just get right into it. So the first thing you're supposed to do is video the entire scene and the surrounding area before you touch anything. Walk around, all the way around, get multiple shots, multiple angles of the whole scene, up close, far away, all the things surrounding the area. Get a good video. Then you want to take pictures from close range, medium range, and far away ranges, just so you make sure you get everything. Take pictures of everything, the same things that you got videos on. Just back up, photographs are always helpful. Then you want to take measurements of the crime scene that you're looking at. For this example, we're going to use the burn pit. Measurements about the surrounding locations, like how far away the burn pit was from the garage, for example. How far away the burn pit was from the trailer. Stuff like that. Take your measurements, how big the burn pit is. All those things. Still, before you touch anything. Then, this is very important, and so far, none of these things were done, okay? None of these things were done. They're just like, oh, hey, look, there's a burn pit. Let's just dig around, see if we can find anything. Oh, is that a bone? Well, let's just throw this on a sifter and see if we can, find more bones. And let's use shovels, because we're not going to do this properly at all. That's what they did, basically. Just random people. I don't even know who they were. Random officers or whatever. This was not done properly. It was not done by the crime lab as it should have been. So the next thing you are supposed to do is make a grid, and like you've seen with the little stakes and the ropes, the strings or whatever between. Make yourself a little grid. So you're digging in one area, you document everything that you got out of that one area. Then you go to the next area, you document everything you got out of that area, so that it could be reconstructed later once you get it, like say, to the crime lab, to sift through those things and try to put them back in the right place. And that's really, really super important to document it correctly that way, so that you can see, do you have a head bone next to a foot bone? Then that probably means that the bones were moved, or that the bones were stirred up, mixed up, or something like that. It wasn't a whole body just laying there, burned, and in the same position that it was put there, if you know what I mean. It's all mixed up. So that was one of the biggest reasons why there was no way to 100% verify or prove that the bones were planted there. They were moved to that location because they weren't collected properly. Which, how do you do that? I don't know. Because the location of the items, like I said, it tells a story. It will let you know all those things that you are going to need to know. You just found human remains. I mean, you want to document this correctly. You want to collect this stuff correctly. You don't want to just go in there with shovels and sifting equipment and damage that evidence. Okay, because who knows what sort of damage you could do with those shovels that you're just digging and throwing and dropping these brittle bones that have been burned down to nothing. I mean, they're going to be damaged by collecting it this way. You want to do it more like a dinosaur excavation, just little brooms and little hand tools, by hand, very carefully. okay, to document everything and to make sure you don't damage the evidence, because there could be some very useful evidence on those bones. Like, for example, if someone was stabbed, there might be knife cut marks or something on a bone, like a rib bone or something, if they were stabbed in the chest. Bullet holes, bullet something, you know what I mean? I mean, there's just so much evidence that could be damaged by the way you collect it. Like a freaking crazy person doesn't know what you're doing. John Ertl from the Madison Crime Lab, once he was finally shown this burn pit, has said that there wasn't much he could do. He was obviously pretty frustrated in his email, especially, and in his testimony in court, that by the time he was shown this burn pit, the scene had already been altered, and there wasn't much he could do as far as collection, because, you know, they were already digging, they were already sifting, they had already mixed things up and were throwing what they thought was important into, you know, containers, boxes, or whatever. And he was pretty upset with because this is the kind of thing that, this is what he's supposed to be there for. This is what he was called to do, was collect this important evidence, things like this, bones. This guy should have been the one in charge of that scene, taken over as soon as that was found. Nobody touches anything, lets him take control over the collection and documentation of that scene. But they didn't. So basically all we have is common sense. Scott Fairgrieve, a forensic anthropologist for the defense, he testified that when bones are moved, usually the larger portion of the bones, the majority of the bones that are found, are in the dump location, not in the original burn location, because it would make no sense to just grab some bones out of the primary burn location and drop them over here in a burn barrel and drop them over there in a quarry. Just take a couple bones and scatter them around. It's pretty clear when using common sense, as he says, that there was another burn location, probably the quarry, possibly the quarry, or somewhere else. The bones were transported using burn barrel number 2 to dump into the burn pit. And if those things were collected properly, we could have known that they were all mixed up and jumbled up, and that was not a full body thrown into that fire, into that burn pit right there. That we could have proved if it was all collected properly. But of course not. We could also prove that they were dumped. But now all we have is common sense. We just have to think about it. It makes zero sense at all for somebody to burn a body in their backyard, move a couple bones and throw them in a burn barrel, move a couple bones over here, a couple miles away or whatever, throw them in a quarry. Why would you do that? And leave the majority of the bones right there in your backyard? If you were trying to cover up something, if you were trying to hide something, why would you do that? That makes no sense. It makes a lot more sense that they were dumped there, and, you know, she was burned somewhere else, and the bones were dumped there into his burn pit. Now, if you are the one who burned her, killed her, and burned her, why in the hell would you ever dump the evidence in your own backyard? You wouldn't. That's stupid. Nobody's that stupid. Okay, this stuff could have easily been just thrown in the river and disappeared forever. It could have been buried in 50 locations and gone. Okay, there's a way to make this stuff disappear, and it's not by dumping it in your own backyard after you've burned it somewhere else. That makes no sense. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Also, just as dumb is that you burn a body right there in your backyard and then throw a little bit here and a little bit there. That makes no sense. Come on. Also, what was in burn barrel number 1? I don't recall ever hearing what was in burn barrel number 1. The Dassey Janda burn barrels. I know that Stephen Avery had a burn barrel where they found some of Teresa's personal belongings, her camera, phone, and all that. But I don't know what was in burn barrel number 1. So that's just a question. Burn barrel number 2 is where some of her bones were found, though. We do know that much. There's also no accelerants found on the bones or in any of the locations. So, to me, I don't know how you could possibly not use, like a fuck ton of accelerant to keep a fire going hot enough to burn a body to that condition, as in you were cremating a body. It'll definitely get hot, and all the fats and things will burn kind of like a wick, in a candle. Will keep that stuff burning, and it'll keep burning and burning and burning until it's gotten no fat or tissue left to burn. It's not going to continue to burn the bones to cremation conditions. So there would have to be some sort of accelerant used on the bones, and there's just nothing there. There's nothing. No accelerant was used. It wasn't found on anything else in those areas. Wasn't found on the bones. So that's a problem. That kind of tells me that she was probably not even burned at the quarry. That maybe the quarry was the original dump site, and the burn barrel number 2 was used to transport from the quarry to Stephen Avery's to dump there. Personally, I believe that she was burned either in some sort of smelter, cremator, deer cooker, something like that, capable of getting hot enough to turn a body into that condition. And Leslie Eisenberg, the other forensic anthropologist, the one at the crime lab, she testified that the condition of the bones were not such that she believed that they were damaged enough to have been moved. Bullshit. First of all, there's no way you could possibly say that. Those bones were destroyed. They were chipped. They were broken. They were not in any sort of natural condition, and they couldn't have been. Look at how they were collected. Just how they were collected alone, with shovels and sifting equipment, and not carefully gone through by hand, delicately, like they should have been, to preserve them in whatever condition they were in when they were found. They were already altered by the time she saw them. They had already been altered just by the way they were collected alone, not even counting how they were transported, moved, dumped, and whatever else was done to them. So her saying that they weren't damaged, and that's just, I don't want to call her a liar, but that's just incorrect. Look at the condition of the bones. That's how she saw them. And you can tell by looking at them yourself. You don't have to be an expert. You can tell by looking at them yourself that they're broken, they're damaged. Sorry, you're wrong, lady. And I would like to also point out that she's also said that she found, there's another case involving her. Something about a fetus, a pregnant woman being burned in a fire, and finding the fetus burned in this fire, supposedly. She claims that it was this pregnant woman who was burned in this fire in this location, right? And they found her body, I don't know, a couple months later with the fetus completely intact. So she was wrong. I just, I'm not really sure what to say about that. I know that the Scott Fairgrave, he had nothing but good things to say about Leslie Eisenberg. He has a really high opinion of her, it seems, but he's confused about how she came to that conclusion. He doesn't understand how she came to that conclusion because it's obviously wrong. It's incorrect. So, who knows? All right. Well, that was a nice little fun bone talk. I'm not even going to go into the possibility that those bones could be someone else's. Because there's no way for us to prove that at this point. So, but it is obviously a possibility and a rumor because the DNA, there's a lot of strange things going on with that. I mean, if FBI can't test these same bones and get DNA from them, how could the crime lab? I don't understand. The FBI tried to test them for DNA, also for mitochondrial DNA, which is an easier test to do, and they were not able to complete that test because of the condition of the bones. That's what their report says. So I don't understand how the crime lab somehow was magically able to get some DNA. So I'm not going to go into that because, like I said, we have no other proof other than those documents, and they're really not conclusive or complete enough to be able to say 100% who's right and who's wrong. But there's a conflict of opinion there somehow. Anyway, so Clue TV. Exciting stuff, guys. Please check it out. Share the link for the GoFundMe. Very exciting. Let's get this started so we can get to work on other cases. This would be amazing. I will put all the links below for you. Thanks for watching.